Welcome once again to Rouge Radio, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for our CIS update, and as always, I'm pleased to be joined by Moe Khan. Mo, pleasure to have you back.
Thanks again, Reed. How you been?
Well, it's been all right, and CIS football has been interesting in the last couple of weeks as well. It started off this week on Thursday night, the 14th, Friday night, the 14th, and that was Calgary and Saskatchewan who started off the week for us, and the Dinos did what they were supposed to do once again, knocking off another tough team in Saskatchewan.
Well, again, Reed, when it comes down to Calgary, last year they were a passing team first, but this year they become more of a run team with Laval, Walter, and Woodson, the three-headed attack that combined for almost 200 yards rushing against the Huskies on Friday night. And that's what they're going to do now, and I think that's going to really compliment Eric Zlowinski and how he plays his football game as a quarterback for the Dinos. And they found the right formula with them being at 6-0 and having a two-game lead on their next competitor in the Can West division. Overall, I think Calgary right now is playing the best football, even though they may not be viewed as being the best team in the nation. But right now, I think they are the best team overall in terms of how their overall landscape they've been up till now, playing balanced football with the pass and run attack going well for them right now.
Calgary looks good, but there's a couple of teams in the West as well that want to challenge them today. The full slate of games on Saturday the 15th had some interesting but expected results. Manitoba and Alberta go the distance, but Manitoba just absolutely landed the knockout punch. 48-20 is the final there, and UBC walks past Regina, but not by as much as they might have wanted to, just 23-16. So both Manitoba and UBC still want to put a challenge onto Calgary.
Well, again, UBC might be the team that will pose the biggest threat to Calgary this year. I mean, even though statistically speaking they were outplayed by the Rams, you have to give Billy Green credit so far because he's been that guy that's kept this team apprised throughout the football games. Yes, his stats weren't as great where he had 2 INTs and 2 touchdown passes and only completed just half his passing attempts. But at the end of the day, though, Billy Green can keep this team alive and create plays on the run. They have a good receiving core with Boyd, Scott, and Green being the 3 guys that they can rely upon. Then again, BC, if they get that home playoff game, that would bode well because, look, come November, playing in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, or Alberta, the weather's not as nice as it is in Vancouver, so UBC right now has to angle themselves to get a home field playoff matchup, which I think they will. If they get that, then anything's possible in Can West. We've seen some funny things happen in years past where a lower-ranked team is beating the high-ranked team, so nothing's guaranteed right now, but given that I said Calgary's the best team, I don't think UBC's far behind Calgary for the Can West title right now.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting last couple of weeks here coming down the stretch for the Can West Conference, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see who ends up shaking out of that conference as well. Calgary, obviously the prohibitive favorite, but UBC's always lurking. Jim Mullins keeps saying, don't count them out.
You can't because, you know what, look, like you said before, Jim Mullins mentioned at the beginning of the year that UBC could be a dark horse team, and initially we were impressed by what they did, and then they had a bit of a little bump in the road, and then they came back again, and now they're a top 10 team. And given that we're coming now to the end of the season, you wonder how they will be because this is a young UBC team, and they've not been in this type of situation where they're the hunted as opposed to being the hunter. So let's see how they play in the next couple of weeks going into November where it will matter most.
Back across the country, the Atlantic Conference was in full swing, but it was the favorites doing what they had to do and setting up that marquee matchup for next week. Acadia walks past Mount Allison 40-10. St. Mary's over St. FX 37-18. Mo, not so much what they did this week was the story, but it was how they set themselves up for that head-to-head battle next week.
Well, again, look, both teams are 5-1 right now, Reed. I mean, this is the marquee matchup that we've spoken about before. St. Mary's, as we all know, always a perennial contender to win AUS. But Acadia was a team that no one really thought would do what they did. Many people underestimated Acadia going into the season, but they surprised St. FX early on in the season, and they've gone forward with what they have. But the key for them next week going against St. Mary's is they got to stop Jack Creighton and not allow him to have the time in the pocket to find his open receivers. If they cannot get a good pass rush on him, then St. Mary's will have that decided advantage because, again, their rushing attack is very dark horse because of who they have running the football with that three-headed attack of theirs. But then again, the passing will be key for them. They have to force Creighton to become a passer. If they can stop him, then it'll be good news for Acadia, going into this football game next week.
Mo, a full slate of games this past week in Ontario as well, with the Western Mustangs leading it off against Toronto, and the Mustangs, again, having a little bit of difficulty, not so much as they did last week, but only 21-9 over Toronto, a team that a lot of people expected them to walk through. They're having a little bit of trouble, and I think a lot of it can be attributed to the absence of Donnie Marshall.
You could attribute that to the fact that Donnie Marshall isn't there, but also the weather was playing havoc all over southern Ontario into Quebec, given that, if you look at all the score lines, not as big in terms of the disparity of points that was being put on the weaker teams. But looking at Western right now and what they have to do, look, we've spoken about Varga all season long and how incredible he's been and how he could be a Heck Crichton nominee at season end. But don't forget about Riva. Riva's the type of guy that can definitely get the yards, and he did that against U of T, where he rushed, not so bad in terms of the carries, but 218 yards on 34 carries, 64 yards a clip. That's a very good average to have, and Varga only has 31 yards, pardon me. So really, though, they have a good balance of the rushing attack with Riva and Varga being a 1-2 punch right now. But the key for them, though, Reed, going forward, is that if they go up against a team that has a strong run defense, can their passing attack take that next step and become much better? And given how it's been so far in OUA, it's sort of figuring itself out where you know who the top contenders are, but really, is Western a team that can make it to the next level? Because, look, no Donnie Marshall. They lost a lot of guys from last year's squad. So, really, all these new guys come into place now, taking bigger roles. Are they ready to assume that challenge to become a better football team going forward?
Mo McMaster moving forward pretty much in the reverse of Western. The passing game looks back on track. It's the running game that might pose some interesting challenges for them. They get past Laurier 25-6. Kyle Quinlan, 14 of 26 in the game for 230 yards and a touchdown. He looks like he's on his game, but can that running game step to the next level for Mac?
And you bring up a great point, Reed. I mean, yesterday was a perfect example of how the weather is in October, November, and I watched this game, and quite frankly, it was very, very sore in the eyes because, look, we all know OUA is known to be in a passing league, and for McMaster to not, they had a good rushing team effort with Pizzetta and Quinlan and all these guys getting some good chunks of yards, but really, though, if they encounter this type of weather again, I don't think Kyle Quinlan will have the opportunity to pass for 230 yards like he did against Laurier. And look, with all due respect, Laurier is a good football team, but they have some great players in Shamar Chambers as an example here. But this game was out of hand, pardon me, after the first half. I knew that McMaster was going to win this football game because, look, they had a decided edge and time and advantage, and that's the key for them. If they're going to go up against UWO or any other team in the playoffs, they have to control the time of possession because, look, we've seen so far this year, I thought McMaster has been very impressive with their aerial attack, with Quinlan, even though he's missed a few games due to his off-field legalities. But this team right now is probably, I think, will give UWO the best chance, the best effort in terms of maybe supplanting them to move on forward to the Canadian National semifinals. Perhaps
the most exciting game in the OUA happened at Frank Lear Stadium in Ottawa, where Ottawa just managed to get past Windsor by a final of 32-30. And pretty much, Mo, the storyline in this game was the balance of yardage for the Ottawa Gee-Gees. 326 yards through the air, over 200 yards on the ground. They looked really impressive, but Windsor just would not go away in this ball game.
And you know what, Ray? These two teams right here, going into the season, I thought Ottawa U would sort of be in a team in transition because I watched them play against McGill in preseason. Granted, they were playing a lot of the young guys, so a lot of the guys that I thought, who were going to be the starters or who would have bigger roles didn't impress me. But they have definitely made quiet moves. What I mean by quiet moves, no one's talking about them. They're going about with their business, taking care of what they have to. Aaron Colvin, a guy that, filling the big shoes of Brad Sinopoli, having over 300 yards passing, 2 TDs. A guy like him you can build upon. And that's why for them right now, if they can get that, as you said before, get that balanced attack with the run and pass, without question, they could be a dark horse. But then again, they most likely will have to go on the road because I've watched them play on the road, not as impressive, even though they're in 4th place right now, tied with Queens. They have to somehow make a jump up the ranks, but it's going to be tough, though, because of McMaster and Western occupying the first 2 spots. So really for them right now is if they keep on with the balanced attack and go forth what they have, then they could be a dark horse going into the OUA playoffs.
Of course, 2 teams that did what they had to do in the OUA, Mo, and I don't have anything stuck out to you from these games. Queens over Waterloo, 53-0. Guelph over York, 51-2. Pretty much a case in the OUA of just 2 teams getting done what they were supposed to do and what they needed to do.
You know, it's like Queens having that free shot, right? I mean, putting that free X in their bingo card, and for them to get that win. I mean, look, you can never criticize the schedule because more or less everyone's going to go up against the same teams minus a team or two here and there. In the case of Queens right now, it's a big win for them, and a point differential on top of that. And this is good confidence going forward because a team like Queens, from 2 years ago up till now, we've seen the ups and downs, and that's why they could be a team that could play well down the road. But we don't know yet, though, because they're very unpredictable in terms of what they can present. And as a whole, though, if they can continue on forward and get the offense from their quarterback play, from their offense, then without question they could pose problems. But then again, we have to see how they play against better competition going forward.
Now, Mo, moving on to what is your bread and butter, and that is the Quebec Conference. Montreal getting past McGill 33-18, and maybe not so much what happened in this ball game, but the repercussions of this ball game with Sonny Wolf effectively leaving.
Well, you know, this with McGill situation first and foremost, this is something that has been in transition for quite a while. In fact, McGill has been planning for this, where Sonny Wolf was going to retire at season's end, and then Coach Clint Utley was going to be the number one candidate to take over as the next head coach for McGill Redmond football team. However, they expedited the process because I think what they wanted to do was to get Coach Utley's face and name out there, because this game was broadcast nationally speaking here on Radio Canada, and get his name out there. I know Sonny Wolf is a class act all the way through. I've met this man numerous times, and he's a Class A citizen all the way through. And some people question, was he quitting on the football team? No, he wasn't. He just transitioned the football team over to Coach Utley. And look, even though McGill lost his football game, let's factor in this right now, Reed, that they had 2 punt blocks that went for touchdowns by U of M. So that's 14 points that they got off of punt blocks. If you take away those 14 points, theoretically speaking, they would have lost by 1. And U of M, I'm not saying that they didn't impress me, but right now they're going back to what has won them football games in years past, and that's their run attack with Bertrand Sené being that guy, being that bread and butter. He had over 100 yards rushing again, and that's what's going to carry this team forward, because they realize going now, Alex Nadeau-Pius is a good quarterback that can manage the football game, but he's not going to pass for 400 yards. He's going to get you 200 yards, get those key first downs, but he'll allow his run attack to make the big plays, and that's what happened with McGill and U of M. Montreal was far superior in the run attack, and keep in mind, though, they always keep an extra tight end in the box for them to have that extra blocker, and that proved well for them going against McGill yesterday.
And, Mo, essentially it's the numbers that tell the tale of this game. Sene with 160 yards officially. He was more rushing yards just by himself. In fact, double the rushing yards by himself as the entire McGill lineup got. Bondi throws for 353 yards, but the problem was just they could not move the ball along the ground.
No, they can't, and that's unfortunate because McGill has a good 1-2 punch in Taylor Kapowski and Sean Murphy. These are 2 guys that I thought really impressed going into the season. Unfortunately for them, and this is something that has caught up to them, was the fact that they don't have the depth that they want at the O-line position, and injuries has caught up to this football team. And speaking to the coach staff, they realize this is a young team in transition, and going forward, as soon as they start cultivating the depth and bringing in more guys at the talent positions, then without question, McGill, I'm not saying they're going to win a Quebec conference, they will start learning to win games that they were losing or they were tied in, and that's why this is a learning experience where for next year, 2012, Reed, I think they could definitely make a couple of noises here and there where they could win a game or two and not have to worry about being in a close situation like they have been so far this season.
A team that's definitely making some noise, and Mo, a team to me that seems like they're playing angry is Sherbrooke. They go past Concordia 31-11, and yet again another impressive showing for that team out of Sherbrooke. They are just not happy with the way that their game against Laval went, and since then they really look to get back on track in a big way.
Well, you know, without question, Reed, I mean, when you think about it right now, their passing attack has been their bread and butter. Well, guess what? That was kind of held in check. It was a sloppy, wet affair down in the eastern townships with Concordia and Sherbrooke. Concordia has never won down in Sherbrooke, and it's hold served again. And the key going into this football game was that Simon Charbonneau-Campeau was held to 34 yards receiving on 3 catches, and Ismail Bamba didn't have a big game himself with 20 yards on 2 catches. You would figure, hey, if you can hold those 2 guys in check, you would win the football game 9 times out of 10. But unfortunately for Concordia, Reed Quest got hurt early on in the football game. They had to go to Terrence Morsink at the quarterback position. He couldn't really move the football. They had some drop balls, but the key for Concordia, though, was that their run attack was doing very well. Ronald Thompson, the second-year player from Southern Ontario, had 80 yards on 13 carries. But for them right now, Concordia's sake, they had the opportunity to control their destiny and really make a big impact. But for them right now, with this loss, they are looking at maybe a third place, if not fourth place finish going into the playoffs if they do qualify.
And, Mo, after last week, you got to feel terrible for Bishops. You knew what was going to happen. Laval loses to Montreal a week ago, and Laval took out all their anger and all their frustrations on Bishop, winning by a score of 57-9. Bishops has been sort of that hard luck favorite so far this season, but today it was just a situation where the poor guys just shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, you know what? Not to water down the program or anything, but they could have forfeited this game and not taken the beating that they took against Laval. But I mean, with all due respect, when Laval loses a football game, Glenn Constantin will definitely pound it into the players' heads that you guys should never lose a football game. And they came out guns a-blazing. I mean, Bruno Prudhomme had his best statistical game of the year, 251 yards passing. Sebastian Levesque had 131 yards rushing on 10 carries for 2 touchdowns. And the key for Laval, though, even though they've been decimated by injuries with their O-line, they have to get that run attack going for them. We all know about Laval being a bubble screen team and crossing route team, but it's their run game that really carries them come October and November. And right now, this is a great way for them to get that going, because come November, where they will be hosting a playoff game if they are the first or second seed, if they are to advance beyond the Dunsmore Cup and go out west to play whoever it is from Can West, it's going to be more of a run game for them, because we all know throwing the football in the Prairie Provinces isn't as easy as it is in July and August. So really for Laval right now, get that run attack going. The defense will carry them throughout football games, but if they can get that run attack going, then they'll be in better shape than they were last week against U of M that they had.
All right, Mo, looking forward to next week. It starts on Friday. That's October the 21st, and it'll be Mount Allison taking on St. FX. We roll into Saturday the 22nd of October, St. Mary's versus Acadia in a big matchup for the Atlantic. Then Toronto and Waterloo, Bishops and McGill, Montreal and Concordia, Windsor and York, Laurier and Guelph, Ottawa and McMaster, Western and Queens, UBC and Alberta, Manitoba and Calgary, Saskatchewan and Regina, and then finally on Sunday the 23rd, Sherbrooke and Laval. Mo, a bunch of games on this week's schedule stick out to me. Obviously, St. Mary's and Acadia is a big matchup in terms of the Atlantic Conference. You've got Ottawa visiting McMaster. That is a big one as well. And then you look at Laval and Sherbrooke. I don't think that one could get any bigger in the Quebec Conference. If there's one team left that can give Laval a good run, it's going to be Sherbrooke.
Yeah, 100%. And just before that, you mentioned Ottawa McMaster. I think that's a great game in itself, because whoever wins this football game could be the de facto home team if they were to meet again in the playoffs. So that's going to be a huge game, and I wonder how Ottawa will play this time around, because last time they went on a road game on national TV against Laurier, they got smoked. So I'm curious to see how they will react this time around playing McMaster. When it comes to Sherbrooke and Laval, what it will come down to, Reed, for both these teams right now is this: can Sherbrooke get their run game going? Because we all know Sherbrooke is a passing team. Secondly, for Sherbrooke right now going against Laval, they have to control the line of scrimmage. Against Concordia, they had a lot of sacks. They had about 3.5 sacks against Concordia. So if they can control the line of scrimmage against the front, young, inexperienced line of Laval, then this could bode well for them. So right now, it's the pass attack. Can Laval stop that? Can Sherbrooke control the line of scrimmage? And special teams, who can get the ball deep and pin into the corner coffin of each end zone, so on and so forth. Whoever can get that special teams going forward, that will be the determining factor in this football game.
And, Mo, one last one to run past you. You see UBC in Alberta, and then Calgary and Manitoba. Do both Calgary and UBC win to set up that marquee date on the 29th in Can West?
I will have to say yes. I think that game, as we all know, with the Calgary-UBC game, will be a big matchup. But the thing is, though, I think Calgary will be undefeated. UBC will be at where they are at 5-2. So it will be a 2-game difference. But look, Reed, we all know that, if you look at CFL, I'll give you a perfect example. 2004, Montreal played the Toronto Argonauts. The Alouettes crushed the Argos in the last game of the year. In the East Final, the Argos came back and won in the backyard of the Alouettes to go on to the Grey Cup, and we all know what happened. They won against BC. With UBC going against Calgary, I'm not saying this is imperative for them to win this football game, but they must put up a fight against the Dinos to show the Calgary team and Blake Neal and the coach staff that, look, we're not going to be a pushover if we are to meet again down the road in the playoffs. So really, this is a good test for UBC to see where they rank against a top-tier school like Calgary, and we'll see how that plays out 2 weeks from now.
All right, Mo, as always, it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to do this again.
As always, look, we're getting closer to the playoffs, Rita. It's going to be a lot of fun going down the stretch.
All right, thank you very much, Moe Khan, and we'll have you back on to talk about playoffs, no doubt. And thank you for listening to Rouge Radio, and continue to support Canadian football.